What's up, guys? Episode 2 of the Poker Flops Poker Vlog. This time I'm going to Borgata. Today is the first day of the main event, but should be a pretty packed room. Excited to see how it is there. This is the first large event that Borgata has had since COVID, so let's see how it is and let's see how we do. Bag secured. All right, so made it to Borgata. Again, the main event for the return is happening today. Let's see what the list is right now. So there's currently 9 tables going, of 1, 3, and 5 people waiting on the list. We'll see what happens. I'll probably end up having to wait for a little bit. I'll walk around and see what's up with the main event, maybe get some footage of that. Gonna buy in for 300, see how it goes, see if we can build a bankroll. So let's get right into it. So the main event was upstairs in the ballroom. I didn't make it up there. There was a smaller tournament going on in the poker room, along with a ton of different cash tables. I ended up not having to wait too long, so took my seat, bought it for 300, and let's get into it. What's up, guys? First hand I have for you is Queen 10 of spades. I'm in middle position. There's an early position raised to $8. I decide to make the call. Late position raises to 25. Early position folds, and I end up making the call. So we go heads up to a flop, and I check in the dark. The flop comes 7, Queen, 9, 2 hearts. So top pair with a good kicker, with a weird straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. Late position bets 20, and I decide to raise it up to 60. Late position calls, and we go heads up to a turn. Turn is the 5 of clubs, so it doesn't change anything at all. I decide to lead out for $127 in an effort to make any flush or straight draw pay to see a river. I have about $100 behind me, to which late position decides to just say fuck you and shoves for an extra $100 effective. Like I said, he covers me, so it's all in or fold. I, without much hesitation, put in the calling chips because I'm sure he's trying to buy the pot. After I make the call, he says, "You got 2 pair, you're ahead." So I figure I'm probably beat by a better queen. River comes a 3 of diamonds, so again, a brick. I turn over my cards and take a look over at his, and he's got 2 red aces, so I get stacked in the first 20 minutes of sitting down. Feels bad, but all I can do is say nice hand and rebuy for $230 while I try to run it back up. Let me know in the comments if you think I played this hand poorly or not. I feel like I made the right play betting big on the turn, but I've obviously got a biased opinion, so let me know in the comments. Now, about 5 minutes after the previous hand, I am in the big blind with cowboys. Life is great. There's a limp from middle position who is the same player who had aces in the last hand showed. Button limps, I raise it up to 13. Both players make the call and we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 3, 5, 6, all diamonds, so less than ideal, but I'm holding the king of diamonds, so I'm slightly more at ease. I decide to check. Rationale here is that I'd rather just get to showdown for cheap at this point. I don't see a reason to lead out here while I'm out of position. Middle position checks as well. Then the button asks how much is in the pot and immediately says all in. He's all in for $67. It takes me a second to make the call. I feel like I'm getting a good price. I'm praying middle position just folds. Middle position does not fold. He ends up going all in for my entire stack effectively, which is around $150 now. I immediately groan and sit back in my chair. So much is going through my head at this point. I just busted to this guy like 2 hands ago. I figured that with 2 all-ins, one of these guys have to either have a flush already or drawing with the ace of diamonds in their hand. It takes me a while to make a decision, but I end up making the fold. I'm not really sure if this is the right decision, but it turned out to be the right one in this instance. After I fold, middle position turns over queen jack of diamonds, so he had flopped the queen high flush. No diamonds on the turn or river, so I would have gotten stacked again. I'm not sure if this is always the right laydown, but it was in this specific instance. Definitely was a tough one to throw away, but I lived to see another day. Now, the poker gods must be playing with me today because the very next hand I have jacks in the small blind. It folds around to myself and the big blind. I decide to raise it up to $13. Big blind comes along for the ride. Heads up to a flop, which comes queen 6-6 with 2 spades. So I'm like, great, overcard and a paired board. I decide to just check because I can't stand to lose or fold another big hand. Big blind puts out a bet of $10. I call reluctantly. Turn is the 10 of diamonds. I decide to check again since he let out on the flop. He ends up putting out another $10 bet. I decide again just to call. River is a brick, the 2 of clubs, and I again decide to just check with the intention of calling pretty much any pot-sized or lower bet. Big blind ends up checking as well. I turn over my jacks and I'm good. Finally win one. Big blind said he had a 10 and wanted to bet the river to try and get me to fold, but decided against it. Now this hand might not seem important, but it is. This is how most of the session went for me. I'm under the gun +1 with ace-jack offsuit and decide to raise it up to 13. Unfortunately, no one comes along for the ride. This is the first of a few hands that I get no value from. Some time goes by and here I am under the gun with king-queen offsuit. I decide I need to make something happen. I raise it on up to $13, and again, it ends up folding around. This was the 4th or 5th time since the previous hand showed that no one came along to the flop when I raised. I say, alright guys, I know I'm scary, but come on, to the table after everyone folds. In this hand, I am in middle position with two lovely ladies. Early position raises to $10. I decide to re-raise at 25. It folds around to early position, who ends up making the call. Heads up to a flop, and I absolutely nail the set. The 2 hearts out there are my only real worry. Early position checks to me, and I decide to bet another 25. Looking back, I probably should be betting slightly bigger here, something like $40 to $50 to get closer to pot sized. But anyways, he ends up calling, and we go to a turn. The turn is the 4 of spades, so it shouldn't change much of anything. Based on the previous action, early position should have something like ace-king or ace-x of hearts, or some sort of suited heart connectors. So early position checks to me again, to which I decided to move all in for a little over pot, $123. Early position ends up making the fold, and I win a semi-large pot. There's some hope for this session after all. Here I am in early position with 6s and decided to raise it up to $13, but hey, no one wants to come along for the ride, so we collect the blinds and move on. This is when I really knew the poker gods were messing with me. A few hands later, I'm in the small blind with the other 2 6s in my hand. It folds around the late position, who decides to make it 9. I decided to just flat since I'm out of position with a mediocre hand, and the big blind decides to come along for the ride. So 3 ways to a flop, where I check in the dark. Flop is 9, 4, 8 rainbow, so not too awful. Big blind checks, late position checks, so we head right to a turn, which is the 2 of clubs, so again, not the worst case scenario. I decided to just check again, trying to get the showdown for cheap. Big blind checks, and then late position bets 15. I take a look at my 6s again, and decide to make the call. Big blind folds, and we go heads up to a river. River is the ace of diamonds. Again, I check, trying to just get the showdown. Late position also checks. I turn over my 6s, and they are good enough to win the pot. In middle position, I have my favorite hand, Jack 9, so you know I have to play it same as last video. I decided to raise it to 13, which has been the standard open for the table for everyone. Late position calls, early position calls, and we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 7, 5, queen, 2 diamonds, it checks around. Turn is the ace of spades, early position checks to me, and I'm thinking I can buy the pot. The 2 checks on the flop felt weak for whatever reason, so I decided to throw out a $15 bet and rep the ace. It ends up working as both players quickly fold and I scoop the pot. Last hand of the video here, and I am in the small blind with ace-2 offsuit. Cut off and button both limp, I limp, and the big blind checks, so we go 4 ways to a flop, and I check in the dark. Flop comes ace, queen, 3, 2 hearts, so I'm sitting pretty with top pair, bottom kicker. Big blind checks, late position checks, button bets 10. Now the last few hands, I watched the button lose with ace, king to 4-9 suited, lost with ace, queen to pocket 2s, and one other one that I can't remember exactly. So everyone can visibly tell he is playing upset or angry or whatever you want to call it. I decide I'm going to try and target him and see if I can make him make a mistake. With him limping from the button, I figure he probably has queen X or some sort of suited hand, or thin air entirely. So with that all in mind, I decide to check raise for $30. Big blind folds, middle position folds, button makes the call, and we go heads up to a turn. Turn is the 8 of spades, so it shouldn't come into play at all. I decide to c-bet for $30, to which the button comes over the top and shoves for $115, which is slightly more than I have behind. I take a little bit to think, and I convince myself this guy is just steaming. I had a feeling in my gut that I was ahead, so I put in my stack and make the call for about $105 effective. Neither of us show our cards while the dealer puts out the river card, which is another 8. After the 8 is put out, button flips over pocket 3s. So he was ahead on the flop, the turn, and then approved to a boat on the river. My analysis while in the hand was incredibly off, but you live and learn. Let me know if you think my line was right on this one. Maybe there's something that you guys can see that I was missing. So after going bust though, I of course have to head over to the roulette table to throw $10 on 6 and $10 on 9. Let's see if I can recoup some losses through some good luck. And of course, it lands on 5. Just not my day according to the gambling gods, but that's poker. You go up and you go down. All right, well, that didn't go as planned. Down down 550 technically on the session, 530 in poker, and then minus the 20 on the roulette. Of course it landed on 5 just to dig it in a little bit. I'll have to review the footage, but I feel like I played pretty well. I don't think I made too many mistakes or too major mistakes. Back down to $0 bankroll. We'll get that re-up for the next vlog. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you in the next one.